Now, fellas, I know we've already put out damage tests on Deterministic Chaos, but today I wanted to single it out, as even though its DPS definitely came up short, I want to give this weapon a fair shake. We've got a lot of artifact mods that are synergizing with Void. We've got this exotic machine gun that's benefiting from the most recent machine gun buffs. And with Void 3.0, I think there is still a play to be made for Deterministic Chaos. Now, if you're looking to actually get this exotic, we do have a quest guide. We'll link that in the description below. Not a very long quest, and actually has some really cool lore tied to it. Now, first up, let's go over the perks of this machine gun. It's got an exotic trait called Heavy Metal, where while holding down the trigger, every fourth bullet becomes a heavy projectile that weakens targets on impact. Now, that's our base 15% debuff that's on Void 3.0, and its exotic perk is called Vexidecimal, where while holding down the trigger, every fourth heavy metal projectile also makes targets volatile on impact. Now, the key thing to note here is the words, while holding down the trigger. You cannot tap fire this thing, guys. You have to hold down the trigger if you're looking to apply weaken and volatile. Matter of fact, the second you let go of the trigger, it resets. Now, you're gonna get a volatile shot, which actually occurs at every fourth heavy metal projectile. So every 16th shot, you can actually see it charging up as you're holding down the trigger of this machine gun, which is a great design here, guys. Very similar to like Collective Obligation, but this allows you to continually aim down sights, constantly holding down the trigger, and constantly applying weaken and volatile. And this is really good because when you actually fire that volatile shot, the machine gun does have some kick, man. Like during DPS there on Templar, I found the recoil to be pretty wild, especially on that 16th shot. So you can kind of anticipate it as you see those 4 empty circles fill up, and when you get to that 4th one, you can expect the weapon to jump. It also gives you a sound cue indicating that the volatile round has been shot. Now, the machine gun holds 48 rounds in the mag. It's also a 360 round per minute machine gun, putting it up there with our other high impacts. So think like Terminus Horizon, Fixed Odds, etc. Now, in a single magazine, you could total out essentially 12 weakened shots with a total of 4 volatile shots. Now, with the weaken effect lasting around 7 seconds, each time it's applied, alongside volatile, that's doing 10,480 damage. Now, here on Carl, we're doing 7,440 damage per crit. With weaken applied, that's a 15% debuff, cranking it up to 8,556. Now, keep in mind, guys, weaken has no bearing or no effect on your volatile explosion damage. It's still going to be 10,480. Now, keep in mind, guys, that the 16th consecutive shot is that volatile round. Once the volatile explosion takes place on the target that you made volatile, that's it. Volatile is gone until you get another volatile shot. I know we're used to volatile rounds being a constant buff on a timer where every bullet we fire out of our void weapons apply volatile, so you're able to actually keep applying the debuff as well as proccing that explosion, but that's not the case here unless you're rocking things like Gerfalcons on Hunter, or the volatile flow artifact perk, or getting volatile rounds from things like Echo of Instability. You get one single shot of volatile every 16 shot. That's it, which is one of the reasons this exotic under-delivers. That single volatile proc only deals that 10,480 damage. That's really not that much extra. And if you happen to miss that volatile shot, you have to fire another 16 consecutive rounds to have another chance at it. Now, the volatile shot does seem to be more tailored toward ad clearing, since the single target explosion isn't enough to warrant using it for boss DPS. We showcased that there on the Templar, guys, is just not putting out enough. Even with things like Actium War Rig, which is auto-reloading this weapon, it falls way behind exotics like Xenophage and Grand Overture. Where this gun does shine, though, is the fact that it applies weaken. And this is a debuff that your teammates can take advantage of. You get a weaken shot every 4th round. It's constantly refreshing, which is kind of changing the way I look at Deterministic. It's almost like a support machine gun. It's good for clearing ads because of that volatile shot and weakening from target to target. And this is definitely going to benefit your teammates. And in some ways, considering that it's applying a 15% debuff, this is neck and neck with things like Divinity. I know most boss encounters, you're going to be applying probably a tether to get that higher debuff percentage. But for run and gun situations, in things like Grandmaster and Master Nightfalls, or elsewhere, having the ability to constantly keep applying weakened debuffs from target to target, and occasionally volatile explosions, Deterministic here is looking more like a support weapon. Now, let's talk about some of the synergies that can make it even better, starting with Void Weapon Channeling Artifact perk. Now, this perk is in column 5 of the artifact, and it states that you gain a temporary bonus to weapon damage that is void after you defeat a target with a void weapon, while at least one of your abilities is fully charged. Now, this damage bonus increases based on the number of fully charged void abilities that you have. Now, those bonuses inside of PvE starts off at 1 stack at 10%, jumping up to 17% at 2 stacks, 22% at 3 stacks, and capping out at 25% at 4 stacks. You can see there's diminishing returns here at the higher end. Now, getting 4 fully charged abilities on Void actually would require you to have all of your abilities: a grenade, a class ability, your melee, and your super. This will give you ×4. What we did find out yesterday, though, is that you can actually proc ×4 if you're using exotics that give you 2 of an ability. So for instance, Armamentarium, which gives you double grenades. If you had no super, no class ability, and no melee, but you have both your grenades, when you got a Void kill, you would actually get that Void weapon boost ×2. Other exotics like Second Chance for that double shield throw, Claws of Hamkara for that double melee, Nothing Manacles for double nade, 6 Coyote for double dodge. All of these gives you the ability to get ×4 without actually having your super, or in the least gives you ×2 if all of your other abilities are consumed. But keep in mind, guys, the jump from ×3 to ×4 is not that substantial, as in don't kill yourself trying to get max stacks. I think ×3 is plenty enough here. Now, with these damage buffs added to Deterministic Chaos, here's the damage that we got. At ×1 of Void weapon boost, with Deterministic Chaos's weekend, we got 9,412 per crit, ×2, 10,011 per crit, ×3, 10,439, and ×4, 10,695. Now, I do want to say, this Void weapon boost lasts after you get a Void weapon kill, and it doesn't have to be with the weapon that you're using. Meaning, if I have Deterministic Chaos, but at the same time I'm rocking it with Funnel Web, I can get a kill with Funnel Web and then swap to Deterministic, and that weapon boost will transfer because it's still a Void weapon. Now, beautiful thing is, even if you spin your abilities after you get the Void weapon boost, it doesn't go away. So if you have ×4 and you decide to use every ability in your arsenal, it doesn't take away from that ×4. Granted, you do lose time because you're using your abilities, but it doesn't take away from that weapon boost. Now, this is a nice bump here to Deterministic Chaos. What it really is a nice bump for, though, is every other Void weapon in your arsenal, as well as the synergy there with Void 3.0. For weapons like Deathbringer, Crown Spitter, Leviathan's Breath, which just got a buff, Reservoir Burst, Fusion Rifles, most notably Glacial Chasm. This definitely elevates a lot of other Void weapons. Now, I want to talk about exotic synergy here with Deterministic. The obvious pairing, considering it's a machine gun, is Actium War Rig. This is only present here on Titans, but this exotic refills your equipped auto rifle and machine gun over time. So instead of getting 12 weakened rounds and 4 volatile rounds per mag, now you get 18 weakened rounds and 6 volatile rounds. Makes the gun a little bit better, and of course you have the ability to just lay on the trigger, especially if you got a number of ads pushing you, going from target to target. It's pretty nice. On Hunter, you do still have Gerfalcons, which synergizes beautifully with all Void weapons. Paired with things like Stylus Executioner, you'll constantly be going invisible because you're going to be constantly killing Void debuff targets. So similar to the Void weapons like Collective Obligation, you have just intrinsic synergy here between Gerfalcons and Deterministic, considering that it's applying Weaken. On top of that, when you come out of Invis, you've got volatile rounds. Now keep in mind, guys, there is a cooldown for volatile rounds, and we did an entire breakdown a while back. Volatile, with Retrofit especially, is not what it used to be. Don't expect crazy damage numbers, and that actually got nerfed last season. The main benefit here is really just the Weaken effect tying into Gerfalcons and Void 3.0. Granted, you still can go get that finisher, which will grant you a 35% damage boost with Gerfalcons, but you have to do that finisher while invisible. There's some issues with synergy, but that boost does stack with things like Void weapon channeling, which is pretty hot. But the overwhelming problem here is that it has such a short duration, only 5 seconds after your finisher animation to get those shots off to dip into that 35% extra damage. Now, as far as Warlocks go, the most obvious is, of course, Nezarec Sin. Considering it's a Void weapon, it synergizes and recharges all of your Void abilities upon getting those kills. But other than that, guys, there really is no incredible synergy for any class with this machine gun. Gerfalcons makes the most sense, but considering it got that nerf last season, we were wanting to see if it was going to give us pre-nerf retrofit damage numbers, and it just didn't pull that off. At the end of the day, this machine gun is a support weapon, but also has the ability to still do decent damage. It's like Divinity without actually giving you a crit spot, but it's applying Weaken, it's also applying Volatile, and it also has pretty decent ad clearing capabilities. I think next season you may see more value from this machine gun though, once Volatile Flow isn't part of the season's artifact. Right now, that perk right there devalues Deterministic Chaos in some ways, considering you can just utilize other Void weapons for those volatile rounds. And this simply just requires you to pick up an orb. And that is so much better than just a single volatile shot every 16 bullets from Deterministic. Overall, guys, I would would still get this machine gun. I would hope to see Bungie buff it a little more in the future. And remember, everybody at one time laughed about Grand Overture, and we see the damage it puts out. Hell, even our damage testing, it was one of the best damage dealers even in this current sandbox. So even though it may not be the strongest thing today, at some point in the future, I think we may see this one shine. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.